Greetings! My name is Jennifer C., and I'm a tutor at Wyzant. I went to Harvard. I went to the University of Chicago for a master's degree. I also went to Stanford for a master's and a PhD. I'm here to tell you a little bit about myself, but more so, I want to tell you a little bit about my methods for teaching. It is first of all a great pleasure to have the opportunity to introduce myself and my favorite tried and true tutoring techniques to you on this video. Now, keep in mind that the greatest benefit to you comes out of intensive video chat or in-person interactions with me. In these interactions, you will ask me questions and I will offer you answers, as is normal. When the dynamic is going well and I see that you are getting comfortable with the material, I reverse the format, as one might, and ask you questions so that you can demonstrate knowledge with the material at hand and, in essence, teach me the math problem, the physics concept, the grammar principle, or the historical fact. This way, we gain knowledge together, eventually getting to a point where you can solve problems on your own. And another way in which we will learn is by competition, but without any time pressure, at least not in the beginning. In a sense, for this exercise, we are simply completing the same problem at the same time and comparing answers to make sure that you understand the principle as well as the method for solving the problem. Now, of course, there are a lot of times when my students beat me. So be prepared to beat me and do well on your end of this, the video chat, and show and demonstrate your capacity and ability for learning. So after the competition style of teaching, there's also a way that I would like for you to understand your own method that you develop in concert with the methods that I teach. So in this way, there's a lot of room for creativity and there's a lot of flexibility in how you approach a problem and how you solve a problem. Your perspective in this regard is of the utmost importance because once you are able to coin your own approach to a problem, not only will you feel more at ease solving problems, but you will get a greater percentage of them right. As for how you and I communicate over video chat, sometimes we will use the screen to show each other our process and answers, again, as is usual. Other times I will pull up the whiteboard and teach a problem on my side so that you can have a clear example of how to solve it, again, as usual. So, to clarify, your greatest learning comes from direct interaction with me rather than me talking to you in a one-sided manner or trying to teach you in a strictly didactic or top-down way. In addition, the more you participate, the more you will learn. Results from previous students has been tremendous. One student in Palo Alto, California, studied physics with me and could not answer the majority of her problems in the beginning. However, after 1 or 2 sessions, she caught on to the principles, mostly because we did not work in a pressured environment, but rather I let her work at her own pace, comparing her answers to mine as she completed them, as described above, or before. Her grades went up steadily, and by the end she could perform independently on her homework and get most of them right. Another student living in Maryland worked diligently, but in her own unique way, in conversation with my methods, on kinematics or motion, Newton's 3 laws, especially the third law, which is force is equal to mass times acceleration, force equations involving weight or mass times gravity, tension, for example, a rope pulling a block up a ramp, normal force and friction, energy, potential energy, kinetic energy, and spring energy, power or work over time, circular motion, circuits, sound, wavelengths, and frequencies, etc., etc. She went from 20s and 30s on her tests to 80s and 90s. Her confidence went up, and by the end of the semester, she didn't even need me. Another success story is my student from South Carolina, who struggled with her English essays in the beginning, achieving 70s on them, whereas by the end of our sessions together, she achieved a 90 on her AP English exam. She was incredibly happy and very grateful. I'm grateful of all of my students too, including a couple more about whom I would like to tell you. One of these students came from Texas. She also was a physics student and did not perform well initially in her honors physics class. So we worked together on all of the topics that I just explained from the other student who was from Maryland. And throughout our sessions, this student would say to me, you know, I really want to be an astronaut. I would like to do astrophysics. And this was the first time she had taken physics, and it was an honors level physics class in her senior year's second semester. Well, she wasn't performing well in the beginning, as I said, but by the end, she was getting like 80s and 90s on her exams and a couple of 100s. So she was very talented in physics, and it just took a little bit of talking through the problems and getting a sense of what was really going on in a mechanical sense, and also when we hit electromagnetism in an electromagnetic sense. So we were really going kind of in depth into the problems so that she understood the concepts as well as how to mechanically write out and do and understand and, practically speaking, finish the problems. So the long story short of that example of a student is that she graduated. She not only had been interested in doing physics, like astrophysics, she had been thinking about doing something along the lines of comics in LA, or sort of a performance-related kind of work. So between these two career options, both of which I told her sounded wonderful and very interesting, she decided eventually to do the physics track, and she got into a school in Texas and was able to enter the physics department, and they supported her. And that was just this past year. So another student who I'd like to share with you some information about I was going to share with you two more stories. I'm going to share with you one more story so that you don't have to listen to too much more of this discussion, although I think it's very important. The last student I wanted to tell you about is an African American student who was from Boston. She was taking physics as a freshman in high school. She was initially daunted by the task of working on the problems that were presented to her in class, but I slowly introduced my methods of working together, sharing answers, comparing ways of arriving at the correct answer at the same time, oftentimes, and most of all, going slow enough in the beginning to catch the fire, I say, or to let the problem sink in enough and become familiar enough to be doable rapidly. So she was an astounding worker, and by the end of our time together, after a semester, she had total confidence in her ability to do physics, and it showed on her exams. With this example and all of the ones above, the goal is not to keep a student on forever, but to graduate them on to the next level so that they, that is you, can become independent from me and any extra help from the outside. We will start out together in our tutoring sessions, and we will not really lose this togetherness in the end, but you will become a wholly independent thinker and learner. This is the greatest gift any teacher or tutor can hope to impart to her students, and this is the gift I promise to bestow upon you. Sign up now to get ready, get set, and go. Bye.